Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I am doing the 2025 Virginia Attorney General election now with less than 2 weeks to go until Election Day, where everything stands, where the polling stands, and how I'm currently predicting this race to go with just a few days remaining in the election. So this Virginia Attorney General's race, is very interesting. It's on the same ballot as the Virginia Governor and Virginia Lieutenant Governor elections. Now, this race was won back in 2021 by the Republican Jason Miyares. He won a super close election against then Democratic Attorney General Mark Herring, winning 50.4% to 49.6%. Now, this was also the only Democrat that was eligible to run for re-election, as the governor and lieutenant governor cannot run for consecutive terms in Virginia's constitution, but the attorney general can. Now, Jason Miyares, though he did win, he won by the smallest margin of the Republicans of Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears, and Miyares. He won by the smallest amount in this race, though he did win. Now, for 2025, the expectation was Miyares would be running for re-election against whoever the Democrats nominated, and it was going to be a probably very difficult race for him to win. And the large reason being was, since the beginning of this race, the expectation was Virginia would probably be going Democratic at the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general level, due to the fact that the off-year presidential or off-year governor elections following the presidential race usually go the opposite of the party in the White House. And seeing as Donald Trump is the Republican president, it would seem more likely than not the Democrats in a state that voted for Kamala Harris by about 6 points in 2024 would be electing a new Democratic attorney general. However, something very interesting happened in this race, where Jay Jones, who won the Democratic primary, had some scandals break towards the end of the campaign regarding comments he made about a political opponent. I don't want to go into it too much in this video because I'm not sure there are things I can say or not that may be flagged or anything like that. So if you want to learn more about it, there's certainly great resources online on YouTube and on other websites and such that go over it. But it really changed the race. We're now in the polling averages, which beforehand showed Jay Jones was leading over Jason Miyares, and by a pretty considerable amount. The last few polls taken before the text message scandal happened showed Miyares leading 49 to 43, 49 to 45 in the Republican Trafalgar poll, 51 to 45 in the Washington Post poll, A2 Insights 49 to 46. Every single poll except for one Republican pollster that I've never even heard of, On Message Inc., had Jay Jones defeating Jason Miyares. And now, after the text, things have certainly changed. Now it shows that Jason Miyares is leading in most of the polls. In the current polling averages, Miyares is now leading and slightly favored to win this race. Though this race is still very close and very competitive, I'm going to be talking about that more in this video. The most recent polling averages from Decision Desk HQ have Miyares at 47.1, Jay Jones 44.4, with 8.5% of voters saying they are other or undecided. Real Clear Politics shows a similar matchup of 46.5 to 44, with 9.5% undecided, and VoteHub has Miyares at 46, Jay Jones 45.5, 8.5% undecided, only a 0.5% lead. So across these three polling averages, there is an average of 1.9% lead for Jason Miyares. And this thus far is tracking to be the closest election we're watching in the 2025 cycle, even closer than the New Jersey governor's race, which for a while was presumed to be the closest election. It seems this one has certainly usurped it, and now is going to be the main big one to watch for in terms of competitiveness. But this race is still very interesting now that the scandals have leaked. It still is potentially up in the air here, because a very interesting trend that's happened here is most of the polls that have come out involving Jason Miyares versus Jay Jones, it does need to be noted, they are Republican-aligned pollsters. So just to give you an idea here, just a quick count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 polls have come out for this governor's race, or for the attorney general's race, in Virginia. 10 polls. There are only 1, 2, 3 Democratic polls in this group. The rest are either Republican or, in Virginia Commonwealth University's case, nonpartisan. But the Republican ones could potentially be messing up the numbers a little bit. Usually the rule of thumb I use is that when it's a partisan poll, I shift it about 5 points in the opposite direction of the pollster to account for the bias of the poll. So this 7-point lead from Qantas Insights for Miyares, it essentially for me means it's about a 2-point lead for Miyares. Where in this Democratic internal, which shows Jones leading by 5, that would essentially be a tied race. Now, some of these polls, once that 5-point rule is put into effect, Jason Miyares and Jay Jones are either tied or Jay Jones could be leading in a few. Whereas in some instances, Jason Miyares is still leading by outside that margin. But where the race is currently right now, it certainly seems the numbers have flipped in Jason Miyares' direction, and he certainly has a much stronger chance to win. But there isn't a 0 chance that Jay Jones can't actually win this race. And I know after the scandal did break, if you have been following the news on Jay Jones' scandal, it may be crazy to even hear that he could potentially win this race with everything that's happened in the last few weeks or so. But Jay Jones does mathematically have a chance of pulling this out, and I'll explain. The reason being is the amount of voters that are currently committed and not committed at this point to supporting Jason Miyares and Jay Jones. So in this race, and I just want to be totally sure here, I just want to double check on the results, there are only 2 candidates on the ballot, Jason Miyares and Jay Jones. And when I just showed you the polling here, there's still roughly about 9% of voters that are saying they are voting other or undecided at this current point in time. Now, that could mean one of 2 things, and the past videos I've done the last 2 days, I've also talked about this as well. That could mean the voters are truly undecided, they're not sure what they're going to do, or they have made up their mind and they just don't want to say to a pollster who they are supporting. This kind of gets talked about as like the hidden Trump vote that we saw in 2016, 2020, and 2024. This phenomenon can exist in other political races as well. And this race seems to be a potential prime opportunity for that. Because Jason Miyares leading in the polling data at all is obviously a great sign for him and the Republicans, especially when you go and look at the other Virginia races like the governor's race. It's really not even that close at this point. Abigail Spanberger is not only leading in the polling averages for this race over Winsome Sears, but she's already breaking 50% of the vote. Winsome Sears around 43.5%, not even close to the numbers, off about 3 points or so from where Miyares is. So she's not really in a great position. The lieutenant governor's race in Virginia, I'm planning to do a more in-depth video on as well. But even here, Gonzalo Hofstra, the Democrats, at 48%, John Reed, the Republican, at 43.7%, right around the same numbers that Winsome Sears is at. That race is looking to be a pretty similar direction as well. Whereas this one, Jason Miyares clearly has the highest floor of support for the 3 top Republican races, Virginia governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Miyares has the highest floor of support, according to the polling, and has the best chance to win. Though, it's very important to note the numbers he does have. On average, he has 46.5%. The chart that I'm going to be using the most, Decision Desk HQ, has him at 47.1%. And the clear direction on this race is that Jason Miyares, the incumbent, now has a chance to win, and may even be narrowly favored to win this race. But Jay Jones was leading for a very long time, even getting around 49% or so throughout most of August. Once Labor Day hit, the race got a lot closer. Jones fell about 45%. Miyares slowly started to gain up ground, but Miyares wasn't really doing too much better than both Winsome Sears and John Reed in their respective races. It's only once the scandal broke that Jones's numbers really started to go down. Miyares' numbers started to exceed that 44% number, and once the scandal really started to take hold in the polling, that's when Miyares' numbers jumped. Jones started going down, Miyares started going up. Though at this point in time, it's still 2 weeks to go, Miyares at 47.1%, Jones is clearly going down to 44.4% committed support. This race is still not technically out of the woods for the Democrats to win. And again, as I mentioned, it's because of that other undecided vote. There's still 9% of respondents who are either undecided or not saying who they are supporting right now. Now, it is totally possible that these undecided voters could be appalled by what Jay Jones said and may all come out to vote for Jason Miyares, or could even potentially vote Democrat for governor and lieutenant governor and maybe leave this race blank if they really don't like Jay Jones. But what I also think is a legitimate possibility is we're expecting close to double-digit wins in the governor's race and the lieutenant governor's race in Virginia for the Democrats. Do those voters say they don't like what Jay Jones said, but they're going to quietly vote for Jay Jones anyway and basically never talk about it and then let the election results show where things are? that is a legitimate possibility. And even though Jason Miyares, I think, will be the best performing Republican on election night, probably outperforming with some Sears and John Reed's numbers by at least about 2%, according to the polls, there is still enough of an opening here. If Jason Miyares only gets around 47% on election night, Jay Jones will probably be winning this race. The question is going to be, can there be enough vote left out there for Jay Jones for him to consolidate that support and win this race? So right now, this current point in time, I think Jason Miyares is clearly leading in the polls. It's a very narrow lead, though, and the race has certainly flipped. But I don't think it's impossible that after election day, if we're talking about the next morning after, that Jay Jones won a very narrow upset win over Jason Miyares. I don't really think it would be a shock due to the fact the numbers are there. There are enough undecided voters left out there to give Jay Jones the win. The question is going to be, what do they do? Because Miyares at 46.5, Jones at 44.6 clearly shows there are a lot of voters whose minds are either not yet made up or know what they're going to do and are just not saying it. And when the Democrats for governor and lieutenant governor are probably going to get at least 51, 52% of the vote, could the attorney general candidate Jay Jones get up to 48, 49, maybe run about 3 or 4 points behind what the other Democrats are doing, especially if we're wrong about the governor's race or the lieutenant governor's race and the Democrats outperform, maybe they win by 10 or 11 points. If that happens, could they actually drag Jay Jones essentially across the finish line where they're winning by 10 points, but due to the scandals, Jay Jones wins by maybe 1 or 2? Could that be a possibility? And I'm here to tell you today, I think it legitimately could. Right now, I would narrowly give this race to Jason Miyares, and in this election prediction, I do have Jason Miyares narrowly winning the Virginia's Attorney General race by around a 1.5 to 1 point margin, even under 1 point, where I currently have it right now. But I'm watching this race very closely in the final few days of this campaign, because though I think this race has certainly gone in the momentum and direction of Jason Miyares, and it's hard to imagine the idea of Jay Jones winning this race after everything that's happened, I think there's enough undecided vote out there that this race is not completely out of the woods for the Democrats here, and that Jay Jones, despite the scandal, may be able to pull off a very narrow upset, but it's going to be pretty contingent on if Abigail Spanberger and Ghazala Hashmi can drag Jay Jones across the finish line, get enough votes in their races down ballot to help out Jay Jones nearly defeat the only Republican incumbent running on the ticket. If this scandal did not break, I think Jay Jones would probably be winning by similar margins, around 6 to 7% or so. But with the scandal breaking, I think Jason Miyares is narrowly favored to win. But I do not think it is a 100% locked-in win for Miyares. And I think if Jay Jones does win on election night, it would be a little bit surprising, but I don't think it would be something I'd necessarily be totally shocked by because, again, the undecided vote is there. 46 to 44 is not a polling number to be 100% guaranteed by. It's not really too dissimilar to what Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump was either, heading into the 2016 presidential election, where the polling numbers were, a lot of polls showed Hillary leading Trump 46-44, 47-44. There was a lot of vote left out there for Trump to win with undecided voters that the polls missed, and this race, at very least, leaves open that possibility. Will that come to fruition? We'll have to wait and see. That's what Election Day is for. But in a state like Virginia, where the Democrats, we know, are going to win the governor's race, going to win the lieutenant governor's race, and voted for Harris by 6 points just back in November, the possibility of enough of them voting for Jay Jones so he can narrowly win by around 1 point, I really don't think is too crazy of a possibility, especially considering Spanberger may be winning by close to 10 points on election night. Still, though, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Also, remember to stay tuned because I have some very important videos coming out in the next week or so that I think you're really going to enjoy. I'm also in the next few days doing a video on California's Proposition 50, I believe it is, that I've not covered yet in any video on my channel. So make sure to check that one out. I'm going to be very excited to post that one. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.